Hi everyone, welcome back to Kristen's Epic Adventures. Today we're going to be talking about some player tips. So make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when the new videos are up. And if you found this content helpful, give it a like so more friends can find us. Hi everyone, welcome back to Kristen's Epic Adventures. In our last video, I talked about some tips for running your first adventure. Maybe you're a new dungeon master and wanted some help. This time we're going to go over some player tips in case you've never played before and it's your first time at the table. Some things on what to maybe expect to help the game go a little more smoothly and make sure everybody has fun. So my first tip is to be courteous. And under that tip, I'm going to include things like make sure that you're on time, whether you're playing in person or online. Also, make sure you're well prepared. You want to make sure you have everything you need. And I can be guilty of this too. I have sat down to play before and online and then realized I did not have my dice. I got everything else I needed, didn't have my dice, and had to ask the DM to hold on for a moment while I ran and got dice. So you want to make sure you're 100% prepared if possible. Make sure you have your character sheet, something to write with, your dice, or your player's handbook if you have one in case you need to look something up, or maybe even your tablet or your laptop if you're playing online. Being prepared definitely helps a game get off to a good start and run smoothly. Also, as a courtesy, I would say make sure you ask the DM or whoever's home you're playing at, if you're playing in person, if there's anything you should bring. Sometimes players help contribute to like snacks during the game. A lot of times, some of the games you'll sit down to play for 3 or 4 hours or 6 or 7 hours. And you need to kind of know what the plan is. Are you stopping and ordering pizza in the middle? Should everybody bring some snacks to share? So that's another thing to be courteous of if you should bring anything with you. Now, my second tip is to familiarize yourself with your character. A lot of times, especially as a new player, you tend to forget all the different things your character can do. And don't consider myself a new player anymore, and I still forget things my character can do. I don't know how many times we stopped playing, and after the game, I've said, oh my gosh, I never even used this ability. I totally forgot my character could do that. So it does help prior to the game, and I'm talking like maybe right before you drive over to someone's house, or if you're going to play online, maybe like a half hour before you play or something. Sit down and refamiliarize yourself with your character sheet. What are your choices on your turn? Do you have bonus actions? Do you have reactions you can do? If you're a spellcaster, try to familiarize yourself with your spells a little bit and how spell slots work. I'm not saying you need to memorize absolutely everything, but at least have the general gist of how your spells work. And if your character has any special abilities. Recently, we were playing and I totally forgot that my warlock has the ability that when it does the final blow on a creature and reduces their hit points to 0, that I can actually get some temporary hit points. I can't tell you how many times I forgot to use that ability, and I feel as though, like I said, I'm guilty of these things too. If I had just sat and read through my character sheet maybe one more time before we sat and played, that I might remember that. Maybe I should put a big star next to it on the character sheet so I remember. But that's another a good tip, is to make sure you're familiar with how your character works before you sit down and play. It's not up to the dungeon master to remember how every single person's character works. That would be way too much. They're already trying to run the game, run combats, run NPCs, and prep for the game in general. They can't really, unless they have like a photographic memory or something, it's going to be very hard for them to try to remember all the special abilities that everybody's player characters have. So that's your responsibility as a player to know what your character can do. Now, my last tip actually has to do with table etiquette. While you're playing, you want to make sure you're doing things like not talking during someone else's turn, or at least keeping it to a minimum. You know, if you want to try to coordinate something with a player that's sitting right next to you, you know, maybe a little whisper here and there might be okay, but I would try not to talk during other players' turns. This is supposed to be a cooperative game where we're all playing together, especially if someone across the table is having a role-playing opportunity. You really want to pay attention to what's going on. Just because it's not your turn doesn't mean you shouldn't be paying attention to the game. You also want to make sure that maybe you take some notes. It's up to you whether or not you want to take really, really detailed notes or just jot down some generalizations, but it definitely helps to take notes while you play. You may find yourself in a situation in the next session where you need to remember something from the prior game, and it's very helpful if you've written it down and can just look it back up, so you're not constantly asking the dungeon master, what was that again last time? What did you say last time? What was that happened? I didn't write it down. So, and that helps out a lot to take some notes. I would also say start having some really good listening skills. Again, as much as it kind of goes along with the not talking during other players' turns, but instead of sitting there and kind of zoning out and not talking when it's your turn, make sure you're listening to what's going on in the game. Make sure you're listening to what the dungeon master is telling you is going on in the game, and listen to the other players too while they're having role-playing opportunities, or even it's definitely helpful too to listen during combat. You don't just want to tune in and pay attention when it's your turn in combat. Combat goes a lot better when you actually coordinate with each other. Each player has kind of their own strengths and weaknesses, and if you can really pay attention to each other and coordinate a lot of stuff, it becomes a lot more fun. My last tip that has to do with table etiquette, and I understand it's not always possible, but as much as you can, please try to stay off your phone or electronic devices. And I'm saying, like, if you get an important text message and you need to read it, you know, I wouldn't say that would be a problem or anything, but I'm talking about, like, if it's not your turn and you're scrolling through Facebook or Instagram or something and just, again, not paying attention. Some places, dungeon masters might even have rules as to no phones at the table, or, you know, maybe leave your phones in a basket at the door or something. And as a dungeon master, I'm not opposed to letting people have their phones on them. Like I said, I'm just saying, maybe just because it's not your turn, don't whip out your phone and start scrolling through Facebook. It just kind of sends the message to the other players that you're not really interested in what they're doing on their turn. So I hope you found these tips helpful as a new player. If you are a seasoned player and you have some other tips as well, please feel free to add those in the comments down below. I'd love to see what you guys have for tips to share as well. And again, make sure you subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell so you know when the new videos are up. If you found this content helpful, maybe share it on your social media and give us a thumbs up so more friends can find us. Till next time, bye.